Assassin's Creed 3 by Ubisoft was originally released in 2012, and there was a remastered edition that came out on PS4 and Xbox One in 2018. Now we've seen that remastered version come to the Nintendo Switch, but is the port any good? And is it worth picking up in 2019? I'm James Zamero and this is SwitchWatch. Let's jump in and find out. Whenever you review a game that's been ported, it's really important to start off with the performance. Jordan released a gameplay video covering both handheld and dock modes of this game. You can check that out by clicking up at the top right hand side and have a look for yourself. In this Switch version, a touchscreen interface has been introduced, the HUD has been improved, gameplay tweaks have been made, as well as the introduction of Rumble HD, and all of these are welcome additions. At first glance, the performance is solid, with a steady 30 frames per second in both docked and handheld modes. As you play a little bit longer though, some performance issues do creep in. In large areas, the game can stutter at times, and when drifting between Animus and the current world, the audio and video does glitch a little bit. There are positives here. Many of the original bugs have been fixed, and load-in times have also been cut down. When we look at graphical improvements, the game has the improved lighting and some of the enhanced details. It certainly looks nice, but when you compare it closely to other platforms, the remastered edition here isn't at the same level. It falls somewhere between the original release and the remastered version on other platforms. As a game built for older generation consoles, some of the effects can be forgiven, such as items slightly merging into each other or some slightly unusual movements at times, and these things are no better on other consoles. But background and details are just not close to the 4K experience on Xbox One X and PS4 Pro. Of course, a lot of this will be down to the hardware's capabilities, but has the game been pushed as hard as it could have been on the Switch port? It's hard to say, but my guess is more detail could have made it over. I'm going to jump into the rest of the game and review this in its own right, but as a summary for anyone who has played the original and just wants to know if they should pick this up. It performs well on the Switch, but it isn't perfect, and the visuals are not as improved as they are on other consoles. All of the additional DLC is here for you to play, and there are some genuinely good small introductions, more on those a little bit later. For some, that's going to be enough, and for others, it probably won't be. The story of the Assassin's Creed game world follows two organisations, the Templars, who are looking to control the world, and the Assassins, who believe in free will and exist to stop these Templars. Desmond Miles, our main protagonist, was a bartender that is descended from a line of prominent assassins. He is thrust into this world of secret organisations through the use of Animus, a machine that lets him live the experiences of his ancestors. The first two titles are set long into the past, and this was the first Assassin's Creed to be a little bit more modern, set in the colonial era of the United States. Desmond relives the life of Connor, a half Mohawk, half British badass assassin. It's a fascinating look at the historical events of the 1750s, with a lot of mysticism and grand flair thrown in for good measure. The game's key events cross real history in an interesting way. I won't spoil the story, but it's fair to say there are plenty of twists and surprises. Assassin's Creed games all follow a fluid, surreal style influenced by games like Prince of Persia. As an expert assassin, you combine stealth and fantastic skill to take out enemies. The game plays out in a series of sequences. Each sequence is made up of a number of missions across various parts of America, including Boston, New York, Philadelphia, and the wildlands of Frontier, as well as on ships. Whilst the game is developed through these missions, each area is open world, letting you explore and stumble upon many side missions, collectibles, and just causing mischief as you see fit. For the first couple of hours you play as Connor's dad, before events lead up to Connor's birth and then his growing up. It's an interesting dynamic that takes surprisingly long before you actually get to play as the main character. Once you do, exploring Frontier, hunting for food and climbing countless trees is a real highlight. The game's scope and ambition is awesome. There are a lot of battle scenes on boats, and ranged weapons are introduced for the first time in the series. The controls are mostly very good. Holding down ZR enters free running mode, which will see you traverse the land simply by pressing the direction. Useful to climb buildings and escape from enemies, but it can be a little bit fiddly in small spaces. Combat is quite simple really. You can attack with your fists or a weapon such as a tomahawk axe. Holding down A will block attacks, whilst timing the press of A will parry it instead, letting you respond with a powerful attack of your own. With a gun or bow and arrow, you can hold down ZL to aim in a semi-assisted fashion. The combat is really quite simple, but it's elevated by the range of attacks and slashes on offer, making it feel a bit more complex than it really is, and some of these visual cues are pretty awesome, smashing to pieces, the enemies, and blood splitting everywhere. It's awesome. Enemy AI is a little bit questionable. They can stand around and fight back in a slightly wooden way that lacks intelligence. They don't come at you in quite the right way. For all of this, the main objectives tend to lie in stealth, using buildings and objects as cover, or sneaking through tall grass and assassinating enemies one by one without getting seen is the goal at most times. Each mission follows a very similar pattern. You have a target and perform some research before setting up an assassination. These missions are a little bit too straightforward when you consider the beautiful open world available. It didn't seem to merge two aims into one. You have an open world on one hand and an on-rails experience on the other, and the timing is a little bit odd throughout. The game was very ambitious in 2012, but you can see that they didn't quite get everything right. Some systems, like the ability to build a base, aren't fully fleshed out, and whilst the remastered edition improves things like being able to sneak in bushes and improving the minimap to show enemies with a direction icon, a lot of the frustrations of the original game can't simply be changed. It would just involve a new game, basically.
Go back to England! No good can come of this chaos! Return to your homes, and all will be forgiven! Never! Not until you've answered for your crimes! You're right, coward! You don't scare us! Pointing guns and unarmed! We ain't afraid!
Is that my father?
The soundtrack is decent, if not particularly memorable. There were 25 tracks in the original release, and a further 40 have been added for the DLC. The game features voice acting that is well done. A bugbear of mine, though, is that it can get out of sync at times, but then again, this was there in the original release. You can pick up a physical copy for $40 or £30 in the UK. The game's length is healthy, and it would take you roughly 15 hours to complete, and perhaps 25 if you master everything with all of the additional DLC. The game has been overhauled and ported well onto the Switch, I have to say. Overall, this is a nice addition. Of course, it is aged, and the original was quite divisive even at the time, but give Ubisoft credit, they have tweaked the gameplay in some nice ways. If you're expecting the same visual overhaul as the gorgeous 4K visuals on the PS4 Pro and Xbox One X, you will of course be disappointed, but the game does look pretty good. For me, the net result is a solid 7.5 out of 10. A strong port, but it could be better. Now, over on Jordan's gameplay video, we specifically got a few comments about handheld footage in the forest. So, after this, we're going to show you some of that gameplay specifically. What is your favourite Assassin's Creed game of all time? Let me know down below. I'm James Romero, this is SwitchWatch, and I'll see you on the next one.